Hey guys, hope you're having a great week. Good to be back with you. Still a hot one out there, isn't it? You know, I was watching the news the other night and they talked about this will probably be the hottest July on record here in south central Pennsylvania. That's pretty crazy. If you look at the forecast, it's like 90 degrees for the next several days, and July's almost over. So when you're out there swimming, just remember, stay hydrated, drink plenty of fluids. That's really important. You might not think you need to when you're in the swimming pool, but you really do need to. So drink plenty of fluids, have fun, and just hope you guys are doing well. So we're going to continue our study or our little series here on awesome guys in the Bible. So we've talked about Caleb and Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Joseph, Elijah. Last week we talked about Elijah, an authentic guy. He was true to the Lord. But today I want us to talk about a guy named Elisha. Now, Elisha took over from Elijah as a prophet. And nobody in the Bible except Moses did more miracles than Elisha. Now, that's pretty awesome. Now, Elisha means, my God is salvation. Imagine your mom or your dad naming you back in the day, my God is salvation. So, like I said, Elisha was a prophet, just like Elijah. And a prophet's job really is to get people right with God, right? He helped them focus on what God wanted them to do. So what exactly is a prophet? Well, a prophet is somebody who speaks on behalf of God to the people. Whereas like Pastor Mark, he speaks on behalf of the people to God. So the roles are a little reversed. Mark speaks on behalf of his congregation here at Foursquare to God. He represents the people. But a prophet represents God to those that he's talking to. And usually a prophet talks to a king or a queen maybe, those in leadership. But in Elisha's case, just as with Elijah, they did a lot of wonderful things for the people. All right? So when we think of Elisha, I want you to think of a kind and generous man. That's what made him awesome. There's a lot of things that made him awesome, but he was a kind and he was a generous man, especially to those that were near to him and he cared for. So if Elisha did a lot of miracles, what miracles did he do? And how was he kind and generous? Well, let's talk about a couple of them, okay? Because you got to remember, back in the day when Elisha was around, there was a famine. There was like hardly any rain at all. Things were really, really bad. Now, we haven't had rain here in south central PA very, very much. We've had a few thunder showers, but you just look at all the brown grass. It's dying. Most of the plants, they're really having a hard time. They're struggling growing. And that was pretty much what was happening in Elisha's day. So let's talk about a couple of the miracles that he did, right? So there's the miracle of the woman and the pot of oil. And that's in 2 Kings chapter 4. And basically when Elijah would go spend some time, he spent a lot of time with people. And one day this man and woman were really, really kind to him. And but the man had gotten into a lot of debt. And eventually he died. Well, that debt still had to be paid, which meant that his sons would probably have to be sold, crazy as it sounds, to pay the debt. And this woman was, the husband's wife, was just distraught over this whole thing. She didn't want to give her sons up. And so what happened was she went to Elisha and said, hey, I owe these debts. I have no way to pay them. And Elisha said, well, get your boys and go get as many jars as you can. And well, first he asked her, what do you have in your kitchen? And she says, well, I just have a little pot of oil. And he says, go get as many vessels as you can and pour that pot of oil into all these vessels. Well, the little pot of oil never ran out. So all these vessels, all these containers had oil in them. And he says, now you go sell that oil and you pay your debts. Wow, what a miracle. It's sort of like the miracle with Elijah and the woman that was gathering sticks. Remember we talked about last week? She was gathering sticks to die, and he says, go make me some bread. And her oil and her flour never ran out until it started to rain. This is a very, very similar story. So there's another story about a Shunammite woman, because she was a woman from Shunem, a town, and Elisha would stay with her and her husband. And Elisha talked to him one day and said, so how can I repay you? How can I give, how can I share my thanks with you? And she says, we're fine. We don't need anything. But what Elisha decided to do was to bless them with a son. So she had a son. Now, she was an old lady. But Elisha just wanted to show his thanks. And so that's a miracle, I think, even in and of itself. But later on, after the son was born, the son died. And the woman was distraught, as you would expect, and she went to Elisha. And she says, hey, the son that God provided me has died. And Elisha raised him from the dead. Another awesome miracle, right? Oh my goodness, there's so many of them. Another awesome miracle. Now you see how Elisha is kind and generous to all these people? So Elisha was out teaching one day to the sons of the prophets, to a bunch of young prophets, and there was a famine in the land, and there was hardly any food. So one of these young prophets had gone out to gather some food so they could all eat, and but they gathered the wrong food, gathered some wild vegetables, and it turns out they were poisonous. And when they realized that, they were scared. So Elisha says, give me some flour. And he put some flour into the pot where all these vegetables were, and it became safe to eat. Wow, another miracle. There's another miracle in 2 Kings where Elisha fed 100 men with only 20 loaves of barley bread. It's sort of like Jesus feeding the 5,000. Another crazy miracle, right? Then there's another miracle where there was hardly any water in the land. Like I told you, there was this drought, but there was this spring, but it was bad water. And the people needed water really, really bad. But this was like polluted water. And so what Elisha did was he took some salt and he poured it into the spring, and it turned the water from bad water to good water. Another crazy story. But he was kind and compassionate towards so many people that God brought in his path. You know, and that's what God wants us to do. There's another incredible miracle in 2 Kings chapter 6 where some men were cutting down some trees, and one of the guys that was using an axe had an iron head on it. And you know how sometimes the heads can come off like a sledgehammer or an axe. The head can come off the handle. Well, this head flew off the handle out into the Jordan River. And what was really sad about it, it was a borrowed axe. You know, when you borrow things, you always want to return them in the same condition that you borrowed them, right? Well, now this axe head is sunk out into the river. And Elisha says, well, basically, where in the river did it go? And he says, get me a stick. And he puts the stick out into the river, and the axe head floats up to the water, and they retrieve it. That's crazy. There's so many crazy things. Probably the most famous miracle that Elisha did was healing Naaman, the leper. Remember, he came to be healed by Elisha. Elisha didn't even talk to him. He sent his servant out and talked to Naaman. Naaman was mad about that. And then the servant said, well, go wash in the Jordan River 7 times. And he didn't want to do it because the Jordan River is pretty dirty. But in reality, he did. And he got healed. And he gave God the glory. That's pretty awesome. But the one I want to focus in on for just an extra minute here is a king didn't like what Elisha had to say to him, so he sent his army out to kill him. And when Elisha saw what was about to happen, he asked God, and God blinded these army guys so they couldn't see. And then Elisha led them out outside the area, outside the town where he was living. And in the end, Elisha was really, again, he was kind and generous to all these army guys who wanted to kill him. So let me read here in 2 Kings chapter 6, verses 22 to 23, okay? Let me start in verse 21. And when the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them?" And Elisha, this is what Elisha said. He said, "Do not kill them. Would you kill men you have captured with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them, so that they may eat and drink, and then go back to their master." So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. Pretty amazing, you know. Elisha was kind to these guys. And, you know, in Matthew 5:44, it says that we're to love our enemies and to pray for those who do harm to us. And that's exactly what Elisha was doing. He was being kind to his enemies. You know, and it's a good story. He's a good representation, a good prophet, a good example of how we are to treat other people. So sometimes we just need to encourage other people around us, don't we? We need to be kind and we need to be generous with them. And it doesn't mean you have to spend money. You can be kind and generous with your words. You can be kind and generous with your actions. You're out playing a video game, share it with somebody. You're out in the backyard at your swimming pool, invite somebody over. Or maybe for dinner, ask your mom or your dad, "Hey, can so-and-so come over and have dinner with us?" You know, be kind to your friends. Be kind to your brothers and your sisters. All right? So you can be generous and kind with your words, offer encouragement, share the things that you have. All right? Go out of your way for people. Elisha went out of his way constantly to help people. And that's what God wants us to do. So when God gives you the opportunity to be kind and courteous and generous, be an awesome guy and do what God asks you to do, okay? Mr. Zach and I love you. We hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.